Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which I think is highly topical for 2018. It's a short paperback book on impeachment, and it comes to us from Oxford University Press, from the American branch, the global part. It's got a subtitle, What Everyone Needs to Know, and it's been written by Professor Michael J. Gerhardt. I found it a particularly interesting book. Elizabeth was the lead writer for the review. Let's look at the book first, and then we'll do the review. There's the front of it. You can see a nice picture, and then you can see the spine, and you can see some blurb on the back. And guess what? Mr. Trump is mentioned quite quickly in all of that. There's the book. It runs to 250 pages. There's an index at the back by page number. And there's a bibliography as well. It's a very well researched book. If we go to the front, you'll see there's the front page there. Then the main bit for OUP. Then you've got some blurb about OUP there. Then there's a dedication, which I will just let you see there. It's always nice to see the dedications. A lot of work goes into these books. There's the contents section. It's been very well produced, this work. Lots of questions. You see the way in which the book is structured, with questions all the way through, running through the various pages. A total, in fact, of 8 pages, ending up with Will Donald Trump be impeached? We'll get on to that. Then there's a conclusion, and then you've got some appendices with the tables, actually, of those who have been impeached. There are notes and various other things, but the actual tables, the appendices, lists the number of people who have been impeached. So it's worth having a look at that if you're looking for a particular known face. There's some acknowledgements. Then we get on to the book itself. There's the actual title. Then we get on to the introduction. And of course it starts off immediately with Trump. And then it goes in from there to the work itself, which is the basic terms, and then it's questions. And I'll explain a bit more about that, and it runs all the way through like that as text. There are, of course, notes, actual footnotes. They're not in the body copy of the text, but the footnotes can be found right at the back of the book. Well, there it is, a very interesting book. What do we say about it? As I say, Elizabeth and I talked about this book because it's such an important one, we felt. And the review is actually a bit longer than normal. But we've got the title for the review, quote, The Misconduct of Public Men. What everybody needs to know about impeachment, and will Donald Trump be impeached? Which is a question still on our lips at the moment. Notice the word men at the moment, because it's been men who have been dealt with. But I'm sure in the future that will encompass both men and women. Now, if you've lost count of the number of legal issues raised by the Trump presidency, you're not alone. One particular issue, however, sheds its baleful light over all the others, and that is the spectre of impeachment. As you'll discover from this book by Michael J. Gerhardt, the issue is complex and therefore all the more mesmerizing. Professor Gerhardt is a legal expert, and he is especially noteworthy as the, quote, the only joint witness in the impeachment proceedings against President Clinton. It's not too surprising when you discover that Gerhardt has made impeachment a special area of study, having written about it since 1989, which was in an article for the Texas Law Review. And his book, The Federal Impeachment Process, a constitutional and historic analysis, in 2018 has been published now in a new 3rd edition from the University of Chicago Press, and included in his formidable list of credentials is a distinguished professorship in constitutional law at the University of North Carolina on Chapel Hill. On Chapel Hill, not Capitol Hill. Many tend to regard impeachment as a particularly American concept, but it isn't, as Gerhardt explains in detail. And yes, this is an American book published in America in hardback and paperback by OUP. And what distinguishes the book is not only its erudition, but its accessibility to every reader, thanks to the author's plain English approach and the robust question and answer format, which I have to say I liked. It made it easier actually to read the book. The questions, of course, are short, that's quite right, and to the point, and the answers certainly aren't. They are necessarily detailed, carefully argued, concise and consistently illuminating. There's been a lot of analysis of this particular subject matter. So what are the origins of impeachment? That's just one of the examples of a simple question with a discursive answer which identifies two sources, England and the States. Now, the States created a uniquely American system of impeachment, says the author, adding that Americans, that's in the 18th century, adapted the English procedures and precedents as best they could to their circumstances. It's explained further that one of the authorities used by the original framers of the American Constitution was William Blackstone and his commentaries on the laws of England, which of course is a very important work. Now, this book offers numerous examples of certain controversies that have arisen from perceived differences or ambiguities in the language in which the Constitution, of course an 18th century document, is written. Now, such luminaries as Alexander Hamilton, again a famous name on both sides of the Atlantic thanks to the widely popular musical, expounded their views in the Federalist Papers on the Constitution they have just drafted. And discussing the types of offences that could be regarded as impeachable, Hamilton goes on to refer to, quote, those offences which proceed from the misconduct of public men or from the abuse or violation of some public trust. They are of a nature which may, with peculiar propriety, be denominated political, and he's got that in capitals, as they relate chiefly to injuries done immediately to society itself. And as I say, the capitalisation is Hamilton's. Now, the upshot appears to be that impeachment offences must be those that are political in nature and determined by the case-by-case evolutionary process that characterises English common law, basically precedent, and as we all know, the cornerstone of the common law is in fact cases, decided cases. The point is made that not all crimes are impeachable, and not all impeachable offences are necessarily crimes. And the exact meaning and definition of the phrase high crimes and misdemeanours elicits much discussion, which of course makes the book all the more interesting. Gerhardt's stated aim in writing this book includes the asking of, what he says, every conceivable question about impeachment and putting forward in detail every pertinent answer in, we might add, the clearest possible manner. However, as no human and no human institution is perfect, neither is the impeachment process, as is demonstrated in particular by the book's concluding chapter, which asks the question, will Donald Trump be impeached? There follows some 36 other questions, ending with a quite lengthy discourse on his tweets, on which controversy still rages. One can conclude from the book that there are any number of factors which determine not just whether an impeachment can take place, but whether it will be ultimately successful. The book's appendix is a table of US impeachments, 19 of them, mostly district judges and 2 presidents, dating from 1797 to 2010. And the outcomes in each case are, well, interesting to say the least. And I'd mentioned that when I showed you the book, because I did find that actually the bit that was of great interest. I suppose that's the lawyer coming out in me. Now, of special note is the author's conclusion right at the end, which certainly summarises the often bewildering complexities of the impeachment process. While constitutional standards do not change, public mores and attitudes, of course, do over the generations, and therefore it appears for the most part that there seems to have been a reluctance to impeach, and that's actually understandable if you think about it. So let me conclude by saying what is important, in the words of Gerhardt, is that the American people must know that if their leaders cannot maintain the standards of behaviour that the Constitution demands from them, they have the power to do something about it. Whether that power is exercised is the direction of the current president remains to be seen. And if it is decided that the president should be impeached, we will expect a brand new edition of this book forthwith. As I say, it's really a question now of whether in fact the authorities and the people who do not like Trump and feel he's done something wrong, they will go in that direction of impeachment again. So we will have to wait and see. The book is published in July of 2018, and I'm recording this review in the autumn. Let's just have a quick look at the book again. There it is. It's a paperback, so it's a very slim book, as I say, 250 pages. The spine, and then the back. You can see there's quite a lot of information. There's a little bit of quoting of people who've read the book. And let me just open this, chapter 7. Here we go. Impeachment in the States and around the world. You see, I think the important thing to bear in mind here, you can see that is trying to give a comparative analysis. And again, you've got the question and answer approach all the way through, and you can see it's body text. I think the important thing to bear in mind is that impeachment, or in other words that we do use, which is slightly less important, recall, is something which is becoming more and more important, as in fact the general public know more and more about the people who represent them. And I think that of itself means that we're going to know much more about our leaders than we ever did in the past, except of course if you live in a totalitarian state where it's all covered up. Anyway, thank you very much to Professor Gerhardt and to OUP for what I've found a riveting read. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.